I've been thinking about adaptations. It's a tough subject to talk about because whenever you criticize an adaptation, people will go like, "Oh, well, obviously it can't be word for word," as if there's only two ends to the scale. It can either be like completely unrelated to the source material or it has to be exactly word for word. No one has ever said adaptations has to be word for word. Like in the history of time, there has never been a person who claimed that was the way. Literally, everyone is aware that different storytelling media work differently. And I don't see myself as a purist when it comes to adaptations. My background is in musical theater writing, and we know how significantly different musical adaptations can be. Take Wicked, for example. It's vastly different from the book in every way. The writers clearly like the idea of having a backstory for the misunderstood Wicked Witch of the West, took some of the characters and just did their own thing. Wicked, the musical, is not for the fans of the book. It's inspired by the book, and it's inspired to a degree that they had to buy the rights to adapt. I much prefer the musical to the book, actually. I think it's much better, but if you're a fan of the book, I can see why you wouldn't like the musical. So there's a variety of ways to adapt something. But the question becomes, why are you adapting something? What are you really getting from it? Why not just write your own thing if you want to do something different? And in TV and film, I find the answer is often brand recognition. But beyond that, I can feel that there's a type of adaptation where the writers are the fans of the original, as in Dune. And there's the example where the writers like something about the source material, whether it's the setting or the characters, but they see the work itself as something to be fixed, which I think is what's happening with The Foundation. So I have seen about 5 episodes of The Foundation, I think, and I don't think I can continue watching it. And I'm not even a huge fan of the book, but they basically took out the most interesting things in the book. I totally support the casting changes, by the way. When I had read The Foundation, it just felt odd to me that there were no women in the world. It just feels weird in a world thousands of years in the future with trillions of people living. The two women in the book were the nagging wife stereotype, and then another, I guess, non-speaking girl with a brief moment. And I think that was it. And it's just a product of its time, but it's weird, so I understand the change. What I don't understand is the change to the characters themselves. Like they took Gail Dornick and made him into a sort of a timid girl, when what I had loved about the character was his silent confidence in the book, right? He's in this fish out of water situation in this huge city, but he's also a capable mathematician who is able to understand Harry Seldon's psychohistory theory. I felt like he had some sort of swagger to himself, I don't know. Why change that? I think that would have been refreshing to see in a female character. Instead, they just made her into a super generic, boring character, which to me implies they didn't like Gail Dornick as a character. They do a similar thing with Salvor Hardin. In the book, he's not the warrior type. He solves problems through politics. And the way he solves the crisis is one of the coolest moments in the book. It's just so great, and they just completely change the character and miss what's good about it. Like everyone is trying to find the next Game of Thrones, but then they remove the political intrigue and character development from the shows. The Foundation is not Star Wars. Now, I like what they did with the Emperor. I think it's super cool, but maybe it's coolest because Lee Pace is fantastic. But the writers clearly wanted to write something else, and they wanted to get the brand recognition of the Foundation. I cannot imagine the writers being hardcore Foundation fans. They clearly see this as something to be fixed, and they lost the core of the story, which to me made it nonsensical and unwatchable. Like, you don't need to extend the characters, just kill them off. Get your Game of Thrones points in the sense that no character is safe. You don't need to extend Gail Dornick. There are interesting characters in the book. The pacing is incredibly fast in the book. Sure, it can use some slowing down, I'll take it, but it feels like they won't even get to the second crisis in the show, which is way too slow. Are they planning like 25 seasons? Just get on with it. Those are the fun parts of the book. But anyway, I also saw Dune, and it's a completely different type of adaptation. It's obviously not exactly the same as the book. Obviously, tons of stuff is cut. It's a 200,000 word book. I will say though, I got a bit scared when I first saw the voiceover in the beginning. I think voiceover is the laziest screenwriting device. Of course, the Foundation uses them a lot for lazy exposition, but Dune opens with a voiceover, which I think could have been cut. I'm guessing they only did it because the studio wanted to have a tiny bit more Zendaya. I'll allow it. Voiceovers are usually added in post because the test audience gets confused by something in a movie, so they add a voiceover scene to explain it. I think it's bad writing, but gladly that was the only voiceover in Dune. The rest of the movie is very character driven. It's clearly made by someone who understands and loves Dune. Denis Villeneuve clearly respects the source material. He doesn't try to do the same exact thing, right? He uses the strengths of his own medium. In Dune, there are a lot of internal thoughts. None of those are in the movie, but he finds better ways to show those in this medium. Like in the Gom Jabbar scene, Paul says, "How dare you use the voice on me?" instead of thinking about it. It gives a moment of interaction between the characters too. There are many moments like this. At the very beginning, where Jessica is training Paul, it's again introducing the concept of the voice before the Gom Jabbar scene. He completely keeps out the character of Fade Ratha, who will appear in part 2 apparently, but he doesn't introduce the character at all. He doesn't introduce the Emperor or Princess Irulan. He does a fantastic job in deciding what to keep and what to show. And as a result, it feels like the movie is done by someone who loves the source material and not someone who thinks it is something to be fixed. Another thing I love about Dune is, and this is so important for me, especially after the influence of Marvel movies in the industry, but here's my problem generally with Marvel movies. They don't allow the audience to feel emotions. Every dramatic moment is always undercut with a dumb one-liner joke. Dune does not do that at all. It just lets you feel every moment. It doesn't try to make it lighter. There aren't any stupid jokes. I do think the book has more fun moments though. I think some of those could have been brought in for characterization of Gurney Halleck maybe. They cut a scene playing the balisette too. Although apparently it does exist, but the thing is they kept the core of the book. The cuts they made were because of the limitations of the medium. They don't affect the story thematically. The sound design and music are both incredible. They add so much to the experience. Hans Zimmer is also a fan of Dune, obviously. He doesn't try to change it, he tries to complement it. The visuals are incredible. The casting is fantastic. There's just something about a well-made adaptation done by the fans, for the fans. It does end in the middle, which is a natural place to end, I think, but it might be underwhelming for people who haven't read the book because you don't really get a climactic resolution, but what an experience. Yeah, I've been wanting to talk about both of these adaptations for a while, so I decided to combine them into a single video because I didn't have time lately because of all the moving and whatnot. You can see I'm in a different location. There might be some other videos on the channel with this new setup. But yeah, trying out some different things. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and let me know what you thought about these two adaptations in the comments, and I'll see you next time.
I am complete. I am